nothing against you, nothing personal. We just wanted to come up with a name for what we want to avoid doing and what we want to avoid being. We want to avoid being a cop. So the reason why understanding the difference between cost per lead and cost per acquisition is important. I'll give you my own personal example. So I spent 20 grand working with when I was 18. I can't remember if it was 18 or 20. With Cole Gordon, and if you guys know who Cole Gordon is, he's this big. He's a YouTuber. He's a top sales recruiter, sales team leader. I mean, he does like 60 million a year in sales. And when I first started, when I first signed on, I was super excited about meeting him for the first time ever. I was like, I was fangirling about this guy. I was like, this guy's an expert at sales. Like I can't wait for him to just tear my business apart, right? And so I paid all this money to have this one conversation with him, and I'm so excited. And so I map out my problems. I'm like, so this is what I'm doing. This is how much I'm spending. And he actually cuts me off. He's like, Sean, just tell me straight up. How much does it cost? Just tell me straight up, how much does it cost to acquire a customer? And I said it's X amount of dollars. And he said, okay, so you're spending X and you're getting Y in return. And at the time we were spending around $400 or $500 to acquire a customer that netted us approximately $5,000-$6,000. Or excuse me, grossed us $5,000 to $6,000. And so when I explained that to him, he said, brother, you just need to spend more on ads. I said, what are you talking about? I'm like, I got all these problems. And he's like, so you're telling me you operate a slot machine where you put for every $1 in, you get $10 back. And I thought to myself, I didn't think of it like that. I never thought of it like that. And then I was kind of ticked off. I was like, really? This is what I spent 20 grand on? And I was like, that's it? Just spend more money on ads? Like, is there anything else? He's like, no. So I asked him, I was like, so when do I stop spending money on ads? And he said, Sean, when you are putting $1 in and you're only getting about $3 to $5 back, that's when you need to pull back on some things. And so when I made that shift, we doubled down on our ad spend. We doubled down on what we were spending. And we went from 40K a month to 6 figures a month in a matter of 90 days. And so what I realized is that my cost per lead, my cost per appointment, all that stuff mattered. But the most important metric was actually the cost per acquisition and the return on investment for that cost of acquisition. All right. So does that make sense, guys? So I'm gonna share this whiteboard here, and I'm gonna give you kind of 2 different scenarios. Okay. In one scenario, you have your cost per lead is, let's just say, $3. You got a $3 lead, right? Now, for some folks, you might think that's amazing. $3 leads, that's great. But if cost per lead doesn't immediately translate into cost per acquisition, what's the next thing that we need to measure if we don't have our cost per acquisition? Well, the next thing that we need to measure is our cost per agency agreement. Who's ever had a listing that didn't sell? Who's ever had a buyer that didn't buy? Right? So if I don't know what my cost per acquisition is yet, I'm looking to the next before I'm actually at the closing table, which is cost per agency agreement. Now, if I don't know what my cost per agency agreement is, how do I know what is the next thing before, excuse me, I keep saying next. What is the step just before cost per agency agreement? What typically has to happen before you get an agency agreement? I'm just looking for like just an ounce of engagement, guys. Just a little bit. I know it's Monday.
Conversation.
Okay, conversation, right? Is that conversation over the phone, or is that usually in person when we're signing listing agreements or buyers agreements?
In person.
In person, that's right. That's right. Let me pull this back up. So if we don't know what our cost per agency agreement is, we need to take a look at what our cost per in-person appointment. What our cost per in-person appointment is. Okay? Now, what typically has to happen before you have an in-person appointment?
You have to get the lead from somewhere. You have to procure a lead and then do research on whatever it is, if it's a listing or if it's a buyer.
Right? So you have to talk to the lead. Right? You gotta talk to the lead. So we could call that cost per conversation. Can we call it that?
Absolutely.
Cost per conversation. Cost per conversation. Okay. Now, what has to happen before the conversation? We got to generate the lead, right?
Get them on the phone.
Right? Well, now that we have cost per lead, cost per conversation, cost per in-person appointment, cost per agency agreement, cost per signed client, or we're going to change this to paid. Cost to acquire a deal, cost to acquire a commission check at the closing table. So now, can I just ask you guys, I'm going to copy this, put this in the chat here. Oh, never mind. Who has all of those metrics in your business right now? Does everyone in here know exactly what your cost per acquisition is? Is there anyone who does not, actually? I'm going to put you on the spot. I just want to see if there's anyone willing to be honest. Cost per acquisition. You know exactly how much it costs to acquire a customer. Sarah, Miss Sarah, can I call on you? I don't see your camera on. I just want to call on you. Do you know what your cost per acquisition is? Just kidding.
Hey, I was trying. I went off screen and I couldn't click the button. Sorry.
No worries. I was
Yeah.
you know what your cost per acquisition is. When you think about how much does it cost for me to acquire a transaction, do you know how much that costs you?
Well, I guess if you break it down by platform, maybe, but like if I look at it as a whole, I'm not sure. I guess I'd have to put it all together.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to give you guys an example, and Sarah, for those of you guys who are currently generating leads, for the newer folks, you guys don't have a ton of flow just yet, but you can use this exercise right after this call. So if our cost per lead is $3, let's actually be a little bit more realistic and say it's $10. If our cost per lead is $10, and let's say that our cost per conversation is $300, and our cost per in-person appointment is $900 because we expect 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4 of our conversations to lead to an in-person appointment, and then we expect our cost per agency agreement to be at least 1 of 2. So we're going to cost, I'm going to say that's $1,800. Okay. Now, while you guys are looking at this number, if my cost per lead is $10 and my cost per conversation is $300, who can tell me what my lead to conversation ratio is? Can someone do that math for me? So if my cost per lead is $10 and my cost per conversation is $300, what is that conversion percentage from lead to conversation? How many leads am I getting that lead up to? That's right, Andres. 300 or 30, yeah. So that means 1 in 30. What is that math? What is that math? That's a 3.333% conversion rate. Okay. We're going to say that this is 3.333% conversion rate. Okay. Conversation. Lead to conversation. Great. Now I want to give you guys, I want to show you the whole formula here. So if that is 3.33%, that means that we're only talking to 3% of the leads. What is if it costs $300 to have a cost per conversation, what is our ratio for booking the in-person appointment? What is that percentage? Conversation to in-person appointment. What is that number? I think it's 33%, right? Is that right? Someone check my math there?
Yeah, 33%.
Okay. All right. So we have our lead to conversation rate at 3.3. We have our conversation to in-person appointment, 33%. This means that 1/3 of the people that we're actively talking to over the phone were able to book an in-person appointment. Now, what is the conversion of people that we meet and the people that sign the agreement? What is that conversion? Someone do the math for me?
50%.
50%, that's right. So we're doing in-person appointment to agency agreement. And that was 50%. So if we have an in-person appointment, which by the way, guys, NAR actually put out a stat that this number is actually closer to 70%. If you have an in-person appointment with someone, if you have an in-person meeting, there's a 70% likelihood that they're going to choose you to be their real estate agent. So let's just say 50%, all right? So 50%. Now, what is that ratio of people who sign the agency agreement and actually pay and actually get to the closing table? It's almost 1:1, right? It's like, what is that math? 1,800 divided by 2,000 is 0.9. So 90% of your agreements are going to close. That's not bad. That's okay. Pat yourself on the back. It's not bad. So we're going to call this agency agreement to closing percent. We're going to say that this is 90%. Okay, you guys know where I got that 90%? I divided 1,800 by 2,000. Okay. Okay. Now, I want to show you guys just the difference in where a lot of agents get really hung up on certain metrics that they think are important, when in reality they have some of our Kyles have their priorities a little mixed up, and I want to show you an example of how dramatic the results can be when this happens. Okay. Now, if it takes us 30 people to have one conversation, that means our cost per conversation is $300. Now let's change this up to let's say it's only 10%. Okay, which is a very, very standard goal. In just about any market, we're easily getting anywhere from 12 to 25% in some markets. So now, if it's 10%, what now is our cost per conversation?
Conversation. 100.
100, right?
Yeah.
Right? So if it takes, and again, we're just going to assume that all funnel metrics are the same. Okay? If it takes people to have an in-person appointment set, how much does it cost for an in-person appointment? I know you guys weren't prepared for a math lesson today.
I was gonna say, Sean, nobody's ever having math class on a Monday.
Big looks. $35, $33.
No, do the reverse. So if it takes 3 people to set an in-person appointment, and it only costs us $100 to have that conversation,
Conversation. Yeah, so
so 300.
300, yeah.
Right.
300.
Okay. Now, because our cost per in-person appointment is $300, and we convert 1 and 2 people into an agency agreement, now what is our cost per agency agreement?
150.
Is that right? Let me zoom in on this so you guys can see. Let me say this question again. If it takes 2 people, if it takes 2 in-person appointments at $300 to sign an agency agreement,
600.
600. That's right. That's right. Thank you, Andres, for participating. I appreciate you, brother. Okay, $600. Right? Now, if 90% of those close, the equation that I'm using is, let's see, 90% of 600. 600. All right. So our cost per page, if 90% of our agency agreements close, it's going to cost us $667. Okay. Now I just want to share with you guys something, the stark differences here. So in one example, we are getting low quality leads, and we're only getting a low conversation rate, a low conversation rate. And the other example, we don't have anything impressive. Some people are boasting about a 40% conversation rate. Well, we're pretending it's only 10%. So we went from 3% to 10%, which changed how much our cost per conversation was. Okay, I know everyone understands when I say, yeah, everyone wants $3 leads, but if it takes 100 of those $3 leads to close, that's a $3,000 cost of acquisition. That's a bit pricey. We want better conversion rates across the board. So look at the differences here. So by having a more quality lead source where you're actually getting a consistent conversion rate, cost per conversation rate, changes dramatically the entire outlook of the funnel. Okay? And all the way down at the bottom, let's pretend that the average commission check is $10,000, which means that our gross profit on this is $8,000 in this example, and is, oh my gosh, what is that math? 10,000.
1,033.
Yep, 9,000. Huge difference in return on investment if everything else stays the same. Which, by the way, I think you can convert more of the in-person appointments. But who is currently actively measuring all of these points? Is there anyone that can say confidently they're actively measuring all of these milestones in your acquisition channel?
No, I'm not 100% like that.
Okay, so this is what I want to encourage you guys to do today. My promise every time is that you guys are going to know more than you knew coming into the call, and that you're going to know how to apply it in your business that same day. So what I want you to do is I want you guys to take a screenshot of this. Take a screenshot of this. And find out in the last 12 months, or heck, even this year, because now we're September 8th, wow, we're in the 9th month of the year. Take a look at your entire year and get an analysis on what your cost per conversation is, what your cost per in-person appointment is, what your cost per agency agreement is. Because here's where it gets a little scary. Where I've had this happen too many times, where an agent will come to me and they'll have a bad month. They'll have a bad 2 months in a row. And they'll say, Sean, the system, I don't know if the system's working anymore, and I'll run an analysis on their account. And I'll see that they already have a 10x return on investment. And I see that their cost per in-person appointment is only $300. And I see that their cost per agency agreement is only $600 or $800. And they're coming to me and they say, hey, Sean, I think something's wrong with the system. I had a bad month. I had a bad 2 months. When volume negates luck, we have to zoom out and see if our metrics are in the green or if they're in the red. Because if I had a conversation with you and I saw that your cost per conversation was $300, that's pretty pricey. We've got to figure out what's going on with your ads. If I find out that your cost per in-person appointment is $900, I got to figure out what's being said on the phone. Maybe there's something missing that you're not saying to book the in-person appointment. If I see that your cost per agency agreement versus your cost per acquisition is drastically different, I'm going to tell you that you're taking on the wrong clients. you're not setting the right expectations, either with your buyers or with your sellers. And so these metrics tell a story of what's actually happening in the business, and so that we can actually properly diagnose what the hell's going on. Excuse my French. What the heck's going on in our business? All right, I know that was very math heavy today. I know that's kind of boring. How was that? Did you guys understand the difference between cost per lead and cost per acquisition? You guys understand the steps? If you don't have cost per acquisition, you're looking to the step right before. And if you don't have cost per agency agreement, you're looking at right before cost per in-person appointment. Because when that mentor who I paid a lot of money to told me just to spend more money on ads, I made more money than I ever made in my 20s when he told me that. And so I heard this quote the other day. I forget who said it, but I think it was from Ozzy. When things go easy, that's the time to go hard. And so if you're looking at your metrics and you're like, okay, I want to do more business, but I'm nervous, I'm scared. If you already have a return on investment, now is the time to double down. If you know what your ROI is, if you're not flirting with risk at a 3 to 5x return, double down on your ROI, double down on your lead flow, because now you can confidently say what's going to convert. You can accurately project what's going to convert because you know. Right now, I was just talking with Josh Wheelock, and I'll end with this. I was talking with Josh Wheelock about this. I was like, my gosh, your cost per acquisition is like less than $800, and we're spending $300 a month right now. And you're getting now, because you have a full pipeline, you're now getting 1 to 2 deals closing per month. Which means last month you only spent $300 and you closed 2 deals. Is your cost per acquisition $150?
It's 12:30.
Zoom out a little bit and lean into it. So, anyways, all right. Any questions for me, guys, about cost per lead, cost per acquisition, the math? Did I hold my promise today? Or was that too much? Was it too technical?
Good, man. I liked it. I haven't seen a breakdown like that in a while, so good for you to bring it back, man. That's really important to keep track of.
Right on, James. Right on.
Whether it makes our brains hurt or not, it's actually good exercise, right? We definitely, this is high level.
All right, guys, tomorrow, again, we're going to be talking about technology tomorrow for Tech Tuesday. On Wednesday, I'm going to, Andres, can we invite Josh? Can we try to coordinate that? Because I want you guys to interview Josh. And then on Thursday, we're going to have live call transfer review. And on Friday, I have a special announcement for you guys. Next week, and one last thing I'll say, next week, my son's having surgery. I don't know if you're the pregnant type. He's got a tumor right behind his nose, and he's going to get it removed. So next week, I will be out. I have full faith in my team to be able to support these calls. And if you guys have any questions beforehand, let me know. But know that likely next week, for at least the first half of the week, I'm going to be out. So I won't be present.
We got you covered.
Appreciate you, Bones. All right, guys. Keep being awesome. All the love, all the power. See ya. Hey, thank you, Nathan.